Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Business Inspections Housing and Zoning Committee for today, which is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. We have been joined by a quorum of the committee, which is Council Members Osman, Rainville, and Chavez. Council Members Chugtai and Ellison are on urgent business elsewhere and working their way back. They mean to be here, but had to be at the Capitol and another meeting, but they will likely arrive during the meeting. I just wanted to note that, and we will acknowledge them for the record when they arrive. We'll start with the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 8. They include our liquor license approvals and our liquor license renewals for this cycle, accepting a grant from Minnesota Housing's Impact Fund. We'll also be making a procedural change to our Homeownership Works subsidy program. Item 7 is rezoning for the Upper Harbor Terminal. And item number 8 is setting a public hearing with regard to our home investment partnerships. Are there any items anyone would like to pull 3 through 8? Seeing none, I'll move the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll move to our public hearing agenda, starting with item number 1. I'll invite Mr. Ellis up to give a report with regard to the Zoning Board of Adjustment appointments. Mr. Ellis, welcome.
Council members, we have 3 appointments and 1 reappointment to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. They were vetted by a group of council staff, planning staff within CPED, and a member of the City Planning Commission. They all seem like they're going to do a wonderful job, and it is unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad we're going to have new people on board. It's unfortunate that we are losing 2 well-respected, long-serving members of the Board of Adjustment. They will be difficult to replace, but we do feel we found some pretty good candidates to take their place.
And perhaps you could just read off the names of people you're recommending for appointment. We had noted they didn't need to run down here in the pouring rain today unless they wanted to attend.
All right, certainly. So we have a reappointment of Annie Wang. She has been on the Board of Adjustment for 1 3-year term so far, and it's being reappointed for another. We have Peter Ingraham, who will be taking the place of an off-cycle term. Dick Sandberg is stepping down from the Board of Adjustment, so he'll be taking that place. And then we have Anna Callahan and Sally Grams-Korsch, who will be taking the place of 2 people who've stepped down, John Finlayson and Jasmine Frias.
So with that, there are 4 appointments that are in front of us, and I will see if there are any questions from members of the committee. If not, I'm going to open the public hearing on item number 1. Thank Mr. Ellis for all the work that it takes to get to this point, as well as all the people who served on the committee. And I will see if there's anyone here to speak to this issue. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Rainville.
Move to approve item number 1 for the Zoning Board of Adjustment appointments.
Item number 1 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those appointments are approved. Thank you so much. And we'll move on to our remaining item, which is a quasi-judicial public hearing. This is a variance appeal by Mr. Moody at 3501, 3515 Zenith Avenue South. And I would invite Mr. Kohlhaas to give his presentation.
Before you today is an appeal of a decision of the Zoning Board of Adjustment denying variances to the minimum required front yard for lawful establishment of an existing pickleball court and retaining walls not retaining natural grade accessory to the single-family dwelling at 3501 and 3515 Zenith Avenue South. This property is in the R1 Multiple Family District, the Interior 1 Built Form Overlay, and the Shoreland Overlay District. A little bit of background on the property. This property is a single zoning lot consisting of 2 individual parcels under common ownership, address 3501 and 3515 Zenith Avenue South. Combined, they have a lot area of 28,313 square feet. Both parcels slope down towards Zenith Avenue in the front, but these are not steep slopes for the purposes of the Shoreland Overlay District. Previously, each parcel was under separate ownership and each had its own single-family dwelling, and that's the image you can see on the top, shows those previous conditions. This picture is from 2018. The appellant in this case is the property owner who has owned the 3501 parcel since 2014, and they purchased the 3515 parcel in 2020 and had the previous house on that parcel completely removed. The survey you see on the bottom of your screen is showing that 3515 parcel before the house on that property was removed. The house on the 3501 parcel remains, and wrecking the house on the 3515 parcel and the ongoing common ownership of these two parcels is what enables them to be considered a single zoning lot. So after removing the house on the 3515 parcel, the appellant constructed a pickleball court and retaining walls, not retaining natural grade on all sides of the pickleball court. The court in this case is 2,254 square feet in area. The retaining walls have raised the grade as much as 6 feet above the previous conditions before removal of the house that used to be in this approximate location. And this project also included the installation of a transparent fence and some vegetative screening above the retaining walls and around the pickleball court. This has all been constructed in the general location of the previous house in the 3515 parcel, although the new improvements are slightly closer to the front of the property. Again, this is an appeal related to setback variances for the pickleball court and the retaining wall. So just to talk about how that setback requirement applies in this case, the minimum front setback is determined by either the district standard minimum of 20 feet or the line drawn between the fronts of the neighboring structures, which were originally designed for residential purposes. So in this case, for the subject property, the setback line is drawn between the neighboring house to the north at 3445 Zenith Avenue, and the other end of the setback line is to the back, what is now the Backen Museum, which was originally designed for residential purposes at 3537 Zenith. And so that you can see the long red line that goes across your screen here. That's a setback line. As we zoom in on the subject property, you can see that same setback line. As it crosses the subject property, this forms an applicable minimum front setback of 65.1 feet on the north side and 96.7 feet on the south side. I will note that this determination of the front setback is something that was discussed with the property owner, the appellant in this case, and his prior representation in the fall when this originally came up. The retaining walls in this case are located 10.3 feet from the front lot line at their closest point, and the pickleball court is located 18 feet from the front lot line at its closest point. So it doesn't comply with this applicable front setback. It also wouldn't apply with the district standard minimum front setback of 20 feet if that were the case. Pickleball court and retaining walls not retaining natural grade are not a permitted obstruction in a required front yard, and the appellant requested these variances for lawful establishment of these improvements as constructed. The staff recommendation in this case was for denial, and that was ultimately the Zoning Board of Adjustment voted to adopt staff recommendation and deny the variance. And in this case, I'll just go through the staff findings as the committee are aware are in play for variance requests like this. For the first required finding regarding practical difficulties, staff found that this has not met. The subject property is relatively large. They still have a lot of space outside of that front setback area where they could have located improvements like this without needing a variance. And placing these improvements where they're located, which is approximately the location of the previous house, that was only facilitated through the direct actions of the property owner and appellant in this case in demolishing that house. For the second required finding regarding reasonable use of the property in spirit and intent of the ordinance and the comprehensive plan, I'll note this is a consideration not just of whether or not these are allowed as accessory uses generally, but also in the context of the setback requirements, which are the subject of this variance application in this appeal. So the spirit and intent of the ordinance regarding setback requirements, front setback requirements specifically, to promote the orderly development and use of land, to provide for separation of uses, minimize conflicts among land uses, to align new uses and structures with the existing development pattern of the area and maintain visibility across the front of residential properties. And for accessory uses and structures, the intent of the code is for those generally to be located to the rear of the principal uses that they would serve on a property. In this case, the pickleball court and the retaining walls have been constructed in a conspicuous location at the front of the property. They're closer than the house and closer than the old house used to be. Staff found this does not follow the predominant development pattern, and the retaining walls with the screening, they substantially block the views across the front of the property and have some impacts on stormwater as it runs across this part of the property. For the third finding regarding essential character of the locality and potential for injury or detriment to persons or property, staff also finds this is not met. Staff doesn't find that this would create potential for injury or detriment to persons or property, but we do find it's an alteration of the essential character, as outdoor recreational uses like this are not common in residential front yards. So there's some additional context in the staff report for some other parts of the code that are relevant in this case, but in the interest of time, I guess I will just touch on, there are some additional findings related to the shoreland overlay district that apply in this case. Staff found that those were all met in this case. I can go through those if the committee is interested, but I'll conclude just by reiterating that the board decision was for denial based on the staff recommendation analysis in this case. There were a number of public comments which were received, some of which were prior to the Board of Adjustment hearing last month, and some additional findings that were received after that point, but before today's BIZ hearing. Those should all be available in your packets. I believe the appellant and his representatives are in attendance today. This concludes my presentation, but I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ellis on item number 2? Seeing none, thank you for your report. I'll note this is a quasi-judicial public hearing, and the appellant has the opportunity to speak first. You are entitled to 10 minutes, and you can use it any way you'd like, and then we'll open it up to the general public should there be comments on either side of the issue. And I would welcome Mr. Bell to give your presentation. Do you need some help? It's okay, we're pretty casual. I will remind you, however, that we're not interested if people like it or not. We need you to stick to the criteria as set out to be able to get a variance from the city. So I'd urge you to stick to those points, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Bell. My address is 50 South 6th Street. Thank you for the opportunity today. And the standards, as the chair indicated, are first, that there are practical difficulties, second, that the use is reasonable, and third, that the variance is consistent with the essential character of the neighborhood. And I do want to focus today on why there are practical difficulties in this case. The first practical difficulty is the bend in Zenith Avenue, which in this case makes an unreasonable setback of 96.7 feet. The second practical difficulty is the grade of the property, which from back to front is 16 feet and just about a length of 200 feet. And then third is the unusually large right-of-way in this case, which effectively extends the setback by an additional 25 feet. And so to begin with the curve of Zenith Avenue, as you can see, Zenith Avenue curves out to the west, and the property at issue here is close to the apex of that curve. And so if you look at the property to the north, it has a setback of 36.8 feet. The property to the south, which is the Bakken Museum, has a setback of just 28.7 feet, and that's marked off of the fence at the Bakken Museum. But those relatively modest setbacks of 36.8 and 28.7 feet require a maximum setback, in this case, of 96.7 feet. And so that's really, I'd say, the keystone of our argument, is that the curve of Zenith Avenue creates this unreasonable setback requirement for the Moody's. I would note that originally this is the house that's been torn down, but originally the setbacks for the homes followed the contour of Zenith Avenue. So as you went farther south, the the setbacks again moved farther to the west, just as Zenith Avenue does. This is the line that shows the setback that is required, and this is where the pickleball court is, and this is what should be really the buildable area. And so effectively, half of the property, due to this large setback, is front yard and can't be used except for permitted obstructions. And so really, this is the only portion in the backyard that could be permitted development under the strict language of the zoning code. The second practical difficulty that I'll focus on is the grade, and that is that the elevation rises from the street to the back of the property by 16 feet. And this is in, I think, about 200 feet. So for Minneapolis, this is a pretty large grade change. And then I would also note that in the back of the property, the backyard, or where the buildable part to the east of the setback line, is about 3, I think in some places maybe 5 feet higher than the Moody's property, which is just to the north. And so if they were to be required to move the sport court to the back of the pickleball court, it could create drainage issues for them, and that was part of the reason that it was moved towards the front of the property. I would also note the third practical difficulty is the significant right-of-way. So this was a bit surprising to me when I first looked at the surveys. The lot line is about 25 feet off of the sidewalk. To my knowledge, it's fairly common for the lot line, and probably in the vast majority or most cases, for the lot line to be at the sidewalk. And this 25 feet of space to the casual passerby is part of the setback or part of the Moody's front yard. And so for the purposes of setback requirements, for drainage issues, for separation of uses, having that additional 25 feet of space effectively extends the setback by just over 25 feet. And so, as we've said, the Moody's really improved the drainage as opposed to the previous house. This is a picture of the previous house. Obviously, it has a considerable amount of impervious surface. And then here is a picture of the front yard with the pickleball court. It is screened from passersby or from the right-of-way. I would say the lot line is probably about here, and so we have this additional 25 feet of pervious surface that can be used for water infiltration. And the slope, that you can see from this picture, is from the back of the property to the front. That was the case before the pickleball court was developed, and also after the pickleball court was added. I will just briefly touch on the fact that the use of the property is reasonable. Sport courts are a permitted accessory use throughout the city of Minneapolis. I believe staff has conceded that the variance request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. But I would also note that it's consistent with the purpose of setbacks. And that is in part because of this extended setback in the front, this additional 25 feet between the lot line and the sidewalk. And the Moody's deliberately placed the sport court where it is to move it farther away from the property neighbor to the east and closer to the Minnetonka Club, which is just to the west of them. So it's moving it closer to another recreational amenity and further away from neighboring houses. And then I'll just briefly close on this is certainly a residential neighborhood, but it is, as much as any other neighborhood in the city, it has a lot of recreational amenities. There's a tennis court, a basketball court, a few houses to the north of them right here, tennis courts at the Minnetonka Club. Of course, the Minnetonka Club, their neighbor to the east has a front yard swimming pool. And then, of course, on the southwest corner of B'nai Makaska is volleyball courts, a beach, and things like that. So, again, although it is a residential neighborhood, it's one that is plush with recreational amenities like the sport court. As Mr. Kohlhaas mentioned, we received a number of letters of support. Those are marked on in X's here, but I won't dwell on that. Again, I would just say because there's practical difficulties in complying with the zoning code, the Moody's use of the property is reasonable, and it's consistent with the essential character of the neighborhood. We would ask that the committee grant or recommend granting the variance, and I'm happy, and Mr. Moody is here to answer any questions.
We'll conclude your testimony. We'll see if there's any questions from members of the committee. It does not look like they are. Thank you for your presentation. The public hearing is open. We'll see if there's anyone else who would like to testify on this issue. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this item. We'll see if anyone wants to speak to it before I do. Anyone? Okay, I'm going to move to grant the appeal and direct staff to prepare findings with regard to practical difficulty, basically based on the fact that there is a 96-foot setback here, including the way the street curves as demonstrated by the applicant. I'll also note that a 16-foot grade change from front to back is much, much, much larger than anything we've seen. I think, in fact, there was a 3-foot grade change where we issued a variance a couple weeks ago. So 16 seems, while reasonable, somewhat insurmountable, and I don't believe that it negatively affects the character of the neighborhood. I would say that the Bakkens fence is probably worse than this fence that is set back 25 feet. So I think they've made, I think they have made the case that they meet the criteria for a variance in this particular case. I'm not sure if they would if it was a large house, but I think a pickleball court with an impervious surface probably meets that requirement. On the chair's motion to approve the variance appeal, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Seeing no further business before us and without objection, I'll consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.